Yeah, but it was like the typical age when, you know, you can't see the eye doctor.
Good. All right, let's go. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this evening's Kings Local School Board District January regular meeting to order. Mr. Morrow, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips.
Here.
Ms. Groff.
Here.
Ms. Cowan.
Here.
Mr. Belfrom. Mr. Skrull.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Groff.
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Ms. Cowan.
Yes.
Mr. Skrull.
Yes. First on our agenda this evening, we have reports and presentations. Mr. Sears?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Skrull. We have an action-packed agenda this evening to start off with our reports and presentations. We're going to continue the trend that we've had over the course of this year during our regular meetings to have each one of our buildings come and report out on some progress they're making around our strategic initiatives. So tonight, we are very fortunate to have our Kings Mills Elementary staff, led by Principal Sean Rosecrans, here to share with us some of the ways that they are applying in implementing some of our strategic initiatives. So let's welcome our KME team.
Good evening. It's so nice to be here, and regardless of how they look, they are happy to be here as well. You know, they really enjoy speaking to grown-ups. So I am pleased to have Mrs. Jones, one of my third grade teachers, Mrs. Blimmer, one of my special educators, Mrs. Perdrix, my school counselor, Mrs. Davis, my media specialist, and Mr. Kazmarowski, one of my second grade teachers. Did I pronounce your last name right? Sweet. Do you want me to spell it? Very challenging last name, and he is Mr. K to nearly everyone. So KME is very excited. I know that my colleague, Mrs. Atkins, shared her schoolhouses that South Lebanon is doing, and I need to, in full disclosure, admit that I completely and utterly stole this idea from her. So this may sound slightly familiar, but with all good things, flattery is the sincerest form of admiration and copying. So we took the idea of having multi-age schoolhouses and then melded it into our KME community. That's the signal. Mr. Sears charged us to take a look at our different strategic initiatives. I know this is not a new piece of information to the school board, but around the Power Five, we were asked to identify a common experience for all learners focused on the development of the Power Five skills. So what we're going to share with you this evening is how we at KME are doing that this school year. So I'm sure you are familiar. The Power Five skills are communicator, critical thinker, problem solver, collaborator, and career ready. And with everything in the school, we always talk about all the initiatives and so many things on our plate. And one more thing. So we had a lot of conversation about what are the things that we are doing now that we could do that would meaningfully connect with the Power Five. And a couple of things stood out to us in classroom meetings and character effect. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Perdrix, and she's going to speak to you a little bit about character effect.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having us this evening. One of the things that everybody in this room and anyone that's really invested in working with elementary children know is that children's brains are primed for learning when they're feeling really connected and really emotionally safe. And one of the ways we do that at the elementary level is through play and intentional ways of setting up opportunities for kids to collaborate and connect with one another. So one of the district initiatives a few years ago was investing in a social emotional learning curriculum called the Character Effect. That involves some positive psychology traits and strengths that we celebrate weekly throughout the year. We highlight them in each other. We've been doing this for a couple years now. And when we looked at the Power 5 skills, it was really clear that there was just a huge connection and huge overlap. And so what were some ways that we could integrate and make the connection between the character strengths that we are already celebrating and learning about, and the Power 5 skills that we're trying to build in these kiddos. And so one of the things that we've done is we've intentionally made that connection. We've looked at what are the strengths we're celebrating as we lead into these community team meetings, and how do they connect to that particular Power 5 skill that we're trying to build in our students.
And then the next thing we looked at is what is a structure that we're familiar with at KME that would also lend itself to working with these Power 5 traits.
And that would be our classroom meetings. Some people call them morning meetings. Some people call them IPSI time, which is intentional positive social interaction.
She's the only staff member that remembers that jazzy acronym that I myself came up with. So we're really proud of her.
So it follows a familiar routine and structure, and we start with a greeting. Some people do like a handshake and say your name. Then we do a message or read a book, and then we do an activity. And one of those activities in like kindergarten, they might say, if you're wearing red, you have to roll the ball to someone that's wearing red and show that connection. So, and this builds connections and community.
And then if you know anything about KME, we looked at an opportunity to connect this to literature and reading, and that is where my friend Mrs. Navis comes in.
Thank you. Okay, so with each of the five, the Power Fives, we have a book to match. So starting with telephone. This is our communicator, Power 5, great book. Follows the, thought of passing a story along and how things change. The Magical Yet, this was our last community meeting. We read this book talking about your magical yet. I can't do this yet. Really great book. So this goes along with critical thinking. Our problem solver book is a lion, or the King Lion. Got lots of power, or problem solving here. Will you be my friend? He's looking for a friend. So super cute book there. Collaborator, the Squirrels Who Squabbled. Big favorite amongst the elementary crowd. And then Career Ready. We have 5 minutes, just 5 more minutes, right? Getting ready, learning about time. So that's my part.
Yeah, so the team met several times in the morning to kind of come up with a plan for how we can kind of get this whole plan in action. So we decided on putting all the students, breaking them up into about 15 teams and generated 15 animals. And it was harder than you think. And we decided to just, instead of just doing grade levels and whatnot, we went from K to 4 and added into each of the 15 teams, kind of broke up a good mix of all the students, all multi-age. And even the staff, we mixed up the staff. So you kind of get a chance to work with some other people you don't usually get to work with. It is nice the kids get to see other teachers they don't usually get to see from kindergarten, one wing coming over to another wing, and it can get a little chaotic, but I think we've got it down pretty well now after our third one, after our practice and 2 other ones. And we basically came up with that idea. We meet and we do the first thing we do is our greeting, and we got everybody kind of meeting everybody else in the group. Then we move into the story that we talked about, and we talk a little bit about the story, and then we kind of do a little mini lesson on that Power of Five. And then what leads us into our activity. In the activities, or for the power or the what did we do last week? Yeah, the critical thinker. We did the like this problems with lava game where they had to get from one side of the room to the other. So it's been very interesting. I know on a personal note, like I've had like on last Friday, a kindergartner came up to me and said, "I'll see you Friday." And I was like, "What in the world's he thinking?" And then I was like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "In your classroom." So it is kind of nice to have more interaction with other kids and they get to kind of meet you and see you before they actually get to second grade.
And I'll just wrap it up a little bit. So this is one of my favorite quotes, and it's a responsive classroom quote. It's been around for a long time, but I think it kind of speaks to me a little bit about what we were doing as a district with the Power Five. Having common language builds our community. In the spaces where we feel most comfortable, we are able to offer the gifts and venture the risks that the best learning requires. We are on familiar ground. And the responsive classroom book is about having, Peggy shaking her head, school-wide meetings, and it's the classic small school in Massachusetts with 200 people, which everyone would love to be a principal of. But it's just taking the time, and I'm really proud of my staff for figuring out a way to build those type of small interpersonal connections and also work on developing some skills at the same time. And I think we've accomplished all of that with this, and it is very exciting to see the kids. I mean, we stop everything at KME, and the entire building is doing this at the same time. It's a pretty cool thing to see.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sounds like the children have embraced that. Good. Good. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thanks, KME staff. You know, one of the things that couple things impressed me quite a bit is there's always a connection to literature. I think that Sean models that every single day, and I think our staff at KME embraces that. But I think what you're seeing is intentionality, and that's the word that comes to mind. That if we're going to make movement, grow skills, prepare kids for their future, that there's intentional time established to do that. And so we appreciate you forward thinking around how can we create the time and space in a way that's interesting to the kids, that they can truly grow their skills. So we appreciate hearing that and look forward to hearing more. Next up, we have a presentation on kind of our high school design update. So we are fortunate this evening. This presentation is going to be conducted by Holly McLean from MCS and Associates. Holly is our consultant on behalf of the board that really is working collaboratively with us, our architectural firm, and the general contractor to ensure that we're hitting various marks. We're following appropriate procedures and really analyzing budget expectations. So I also have Charlie Janigan from SHP to talk about some of the value engineering that we've done from the presentation that Charlie did in December to now. There's been a lot of things that have happened. So we're going to start off with Holly, and then she's going to kick it to Charlie.
Well, good evening, everyone. If you want to start with the first slide here. Ooh, some of that print is a little small for us, but what you need to know on some of the timeline and the benchmarks that we're hitting along the design portions are different portions of how we design and the detail level as we move through the process. So at the end of December, we were at the end of schematic design, which is one of our first stages where we start to the estimating process. The general contractor starts talking to the bidding community and other contractors. We start to develop an overall of what you guys have seen so far. But with that and with the estimating process back in November, we were within about 5% of the budget of where we were looking at for the new high school. Lots of work over December and January. We're working to get up to or back to closer to budget and within budget of about 1.8%. So, and Charlie will help us walk through like all the different things that we looked at, why we're looking at these things and how we're developing that. OFCC standards, as we are in schematic design, which is very early. We're about a third of the way through, I would say, of massing of the building. So you'll see the different elevations and massing of the building, but a lot of the details haven't been sifted out yet. There are a lot more engagement with staff and with students and with administration and with different departments. So as those start to come together further along in the design, a lot more of these details in smaller groups will start to wash out and we'll get more details, specifics, things like that as we move through. So OFCC tries to target within 5% of the budget in schematic design because a lot of our numbers are still based on a per square foot basis. So I'm looking at HVAC and we're doing this style of system, but a lot of the equipment isn't dealt out with yet, or like specific pieces of equipment is not quite fine-tuned yet. So we're looking at what type of system it is, what it generally costs per square foot. And that's kind of the level of detail that we were at and working with some of this and trying to answer some of those assumptions and clarifications we make along the way to get from that within 5% down to within 2%. Now in this estimating process, some of the things that I try to give the team is a for instance, because a lot of even the best estimators in construction are usually in between 1% and 2% of the cost of work that we'll finally get to, right? The final numbers. And those are the best estimators around. Well, when you're estimating, you have a bunch of different bidders that are coming into the marketplace and process. And we kind of want to hit the second place contractors, if that makes sense. Because sometimes that first lowest number doesn't always work out with either our timeline or they miss something. So trying to stay within that bounds is where we try to look at as an overall team within the process. So I'm going to give it over to Charlie for a little bit to talk about some of those different items and ways that we looked at that.
Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so value engineering, or commonly known as VE, is a way to find some reductions in the estimate of a project or the cost of a project through some alternative solutions. So I'm not going to go through every single bullet, but I'll maybe hit the top 4 or 5 here. The first one, and I'll have some graphics on this one, is there were some scope clarifications. So when HGC estimated it and SHP estimated it, as Holly mentioned, we were just at the schematic phase, and we could have estimated things as Cadillac systems for everything, a Cadillac theater, a Cadillac technology, Cadillac furniture. Well, we got to figure out what would fit the budget. So maybe we could fit a Honda Accord or a Honda Pilot versus a Cadillac. So we're trying to make sure that we had alignment. So a lot of that was scope clarifications and talking with the various estimators. SHP estimated it and HGC, and with the designers. Number 2, revise the music theater arena and the overall event entry. I think I was here a few months ago, and we talked about the volume, how big it was, and we brought it down. You'll see a graphic of how we did that and how by doing that design change, we saved $1 million. And then we also ran this by the CAT team, and the CAT team supported this revised solution, which created $1 million savings. The courtyard, we have 2 courtyards, and we wanted to make sure we had alignment on what was going to be in the courtyard and how it would be used. So we were able to determine a budget for what would fit in the courtyard and what was appropriate to fit the budget. Another one is that the 4th bullet, which is reduce the height of the CMU walls. So for our school building, we have block walls. It's concrete block, concrete masonry unit is what CMU stands for. And we drew the building with block walls everywhere, and then they would go all the way to the bottom of the floor above. And you do that for acoustics to create acoustic separations in between the classrooms. That's a lot of work. It's in some cases, that's a lot of weight and height that had to go and be built up very high. And so we have an option where we can build those CMU walls up about 10 feet, which is within the classroom space, the occupied space by users. And then from there, we can actually use steel studs and drywall and insulation. That can be built a lot quicker, and it can create a significant amount of savings. So, overall, the goal is to utilize the Ohio School Design Manual, that's commonly referred to as the OSDM. And we're trying to make sure that we're meeting the design manual standards, which is prescribed by the state of Ohio. The other thing I'll provide clarity on is that we are going to do more estimates. So this is the SD estimate. We're going to do another estimate about the next third. It's called the DD estimate, and that'll create also additional budget clarity because there will be things known. Holly just mentioned we use square footage costs. For HVAC, we just said, well, let's just use $40 a square foot because that's what we've used in the past 3 jobs. They were at 38 or 39. Let's plug in 40. Well, in DD, we will actually have the size of the boiler. We will actually have the size of the chiller, and we can go out and price those and see the real price might be $38.75. So by giving us more time, adding more design information, it'll create clarity to the budget. Next slide. This shows on the left-hand side the event entry, the theater and the arena. It was commonly referred to as kind of the circus tent entry. We were kind of going for a crown, but those curves created some high volumes and some complex costs. And so we were able to move to the current design on the right. And as you can see, the volume came down. It didn't change any of the square footage in the building, but we estimated about $1 million in savings. So that's a great value engineering example to get close to the budget. Here's showing in black or gray is spaces that are there, but blue in this diagram changed. So you can see the top of the wall, we brought it down a little bit. It's called a parapet wall. So the interior space didn't change. The footprint of the building didn't change. It just the building got a little shorter. You can also see that we changed some glass. We brought it down 8 or 12 or 16 inches to create some savings in glass. Glass is more expensive than buying brick. This is another diagram showing glazing reductions kind of throughout the classroom wing. And so as you can see on the left, there was glass that was some long pieces, and it was low glass. It was actually at like the ground level, which you were not really going to get many views out of it. So we were able to change that material to either metal panels or to a CMU material. And again, that creates savings. So that's a really easy value engineering that really no one would really notice. And it's helping us get it closer to the budget. The retaining wall shown in black, those are topographic lines you're looking at, and you can see they step. Every one of those is a foot, representing a foot, and so it's an area where water will be detained, and then it'll get released into the Little Miami River downstream to the east. And this had a substantial retaining wall, and so we were able to change the shape of that, and it reduces the size of the wall holding up the earth there. So that was another one where, again, no one notices a difference other than the shape of different shape of detention. Yes, question. That is going to be located to the south of your current stadium. There's going to be tennis courts and parking in between. So it's like your football field, your track. Keep going south. Now it's a grass field. There'll be some more sports fields there and parking. And then this is kind of going to be on the Kings Island property, the newly acquired properties. Yeah. This is another VE where we reduced the overall building by 2 feet. And so the first floor to second floor was a 20-foot floor to floor elevation. We changed it to 18. And again, this type of move created $160,000 of savings. So it's something that's hardly any folks would notice it. You can see in the 2 diagrams, we still have the same size learning stair, and we just shrunk the building by 2 feet. I think this is my final one where we adjusted the casework to the Ohio School Design Manual minimum. So we did this on first, second, and third throughout. You can see the one highlighted in blue and red. You can our casework that was kind of above and beyond. We're still going to include it, and we might price it as an alternate. And if prices come in good, well, we'll buy it. But if we're still at money's tight, we might omit those from the program. But very often those are purchased and included.
So kind of circling back to our 3 different phases where we're going to have estimates. We just finished the purple level, which is schematic design. Our next piece is going to be closer to May of getting some of that next pricing in, and that's going to be design development. And then the last piece is construction documents, where we're actually going to get permit, we're getting some final numbers, we're putting things together. So underneath those, you'll kind of see it's an iteration of how much information is in each section. So right now, if you see there, drawings, we have about 197 sheets of drawings at this point. The next iteration of this coming later this spring is going to be probably twice as much. And we're also going to have about probably 2,300 pages of specifics to go with it. Not just the drawings, but actual specifics on when we talk about a boiler, when we talk about a light fixture, when we talk about some of this stuff is going to start to add in. And then the final is probably going to be, I would say, about 400 sheets of drawings. And then we'll probably crank the specifications back to still about 2,000 pages to get through and to read through, but of some of the specifics. So as you can see, just the level of detail as we move through these 3 sections of the design and how we continue to develop and add information through the process so we can answer some of those questions and get clarity in the estimates for the budget.
So next steps is we are buttoning up the schematic design phase submission. So you may remember there were some phase submission approvals for Columbia. They were kind of combined, but there will be one assembled that'll have all the budgetary information, reference all the drawings that we've done, and other supplemental information that we need to provide. That'll come before you for approval. And then starting tomorrow, we're actually beginning our round 2 of staff feedback meetings. And so they're going to be looking at a lot of the details, more focused on kind of the areas where the worlds they'll be living in. And again, start to take in additional feedback. And as Holly mentioned, we will be producing, I think it's March 21st, we hit print. And then we'll go through the same exercise of estimating, but there'll be a lot more information, which reduces assumptions, because right now a lot of the estimate, there's just assumptions because the information hasn't been finalized. So with that, we'll turn it to questions to you guys.
Can we go back a couple of slides real quick? Can you, the case, yeah, can you explain the casework?
Sure. The casework is just the storage that is within each classroom. The state of Ohio has a very prescribed number of base cabinets and wall cabinets and sinks that should be included in each classroom. So for example, it's 16 feet of wall cabinets, 16 feet of base cabinets, 16 feet of marker board, 16 feet of tack board. Those are just off the top of my head for a general classroom. When we lay this out, we might have shown 18 feet just based off some of our initial meetings. And so, we can easily isolate that this extra 2 feet is kind of a bonus base cabinet, a bonus wall cabinet,
Okay.
and we might price it separately to make sure it fits within the budget.
Thank you.
There's also teachers' wardrobes, which is it's an upright cabinet. It's lockable by teachers. A lot of their controls for microphones and the mics they use and audio is in there. The purses can get locked in there. Laptops can be locked in there, etc. Car keys.
Charlie, what's the tentative date for the construction documents, or is that? I know.
Yeah, so construction documents are going to be kind of phased. We have a plan where we want to start doing some site work this summer. And so with our March 21st DD set, there will be some site-based activities to clear the baseball field and softball field. That'll be in there. But then the final, we might pull foundations out too. So the foundations and maybe, some site clearing things can happen. The final construction documents will be later in the summer, June, July. And so that will allow HGC to price those initial activities. There'll be a GMP presented to you, just kind of like we did at Columbia, like where we bought the chiller in the beginning, the HVAC equipment. And then we'll finalize drawings. They'll finalize pricing later in the summer. And then that'll be the big GMP that'll be ultimately approved. Yep. We want to capitalize on the obviously rising temperatures whenever they come.
So to clarify on the budget, we were at 5% in November and it said 1.8%.
Yes. So
Are we at 1.8 right?
right now, the current budget estimate from HGC and SHP is it's about 1.8% above the prescribed budget. And that's a great mark, really, where we are. In 2022, 2021, a lot of these times we were at 10%, 12%. And so the market has kind of settled down a little bit. And as you can see with Columbia, how Columbia came in at budget, we think that there's enough safety in HGC's estimate that we're proceeding forward and we're implementing the big changes from that 5 to 1.8, the reductions. We're implementing those into the design. And then again, when we hit print in March, they'll go to the subcontractor network. They'll see the revised drawings. And for example, the previous solution might have had, I'm going to make the number up, 20,000 square feet of glass. This new design solution might have 17,000 square foot of glass. We cut out 3,000. That created savings. So that's how that can be calculated and factored into the pricing.
Does the contingency percentage remain the same?
I knew I would get the microphone back on that one. So there's multiple contingencies on it, but yes, the owner's contingency, we have not reduced that at all because I never want to reduce that until we start to get in the ground. Soil is your biggest risk as an owner. And once we get past soil, then I like to get building enclosed. And then we reduce some more risk on ourselves. And then after that. So no, this is way too early in the process to reduce any of the owner contingency at this point.
Good, thank you. I think this might be a question from Matt. Is this an additional retention? Or is it the one that's already back in the woods?
Different one. So you've got the one at the end of your old street.
Yes.
That still will exist and get retooled a little bit. And then you've got this one so there's already a detention basin on the far south end of the football stadium at the track, which will kind of go away and shift to this. So when you go from all permeable land to zero permeable land, you have to manage your water. And really managing your water is slowing it down to get to the river or the stream or wherever you're driving it to. So this basin will be volume-wise sized to basically take all of this, what once was permeable to non-permeable, drive that water there, slow it down to the river in a manageable pace without creating more erosion than necessary, all the things that you're trying to maintain.
So it'll have a pumping station?
Gravity. That's the nice thing about our site. Gravity will take care of that. We're really just slowing that water down, housing it, and letting it dissipate.
I just described it as a big bathtub. It's a big bathtub that'll fill up. And then there'll be a drain you pull. When you pull it, it's always open, and it'll just drain down slowly.
It's exactly like a bathtub. You got your drain on the bottom. You've got your little drain on the wall. If all heck breaks loose and the drain on the wall needs to start working, there's one of those in there as well.
Yep.
Would there be any concern from nearby trees about getting those drains clogged from leaves falling in them?
We've got 3 current basins right now. hasn't really been an issue for us. When you get into these volumes, like these outlets of pipe, are healthy. It won't be, but it will be something that we do need to maintain. So Deerfield Township actually has a stormwater management team that inspects your outlets and inlets and all those things to make sure that they're clear of debris. Because I'll get a picture of one that every year there's probably 15 tennis balls down in the bottom of. You can all guess which detention basin that's from. But I'll send a guy down. We'll clean out the ball. So it's a yearly look at that, especially during heavy rain season.
I thought you were gonna say it's like clearing hair out of the bathtub.
Similar.
Yeah.
So I think the important piece is that as we, and it's important for the board and our staff and community to understand that there hasn't been a lot of time spent at this point inside the walls of the building. Most of the efforts have been on the shell, the exterior, the site, the layout, the things that we were just discussing here to make sure you get that right. And now as we move into, there's been just some standard operation of what an interior of a typical building might look like. But we really haven't spent any time in that. And I'll use the example of the event entry. As we have taken time and spent some time with Charlie's team, with HGC to really analyze the components of a certain area, like the event entry or that music theater entry area. We've been really successful on number one, fixing or enhancing the design, but doing it in a way to save money. And so that event entry is a great example because we got feedback from our CAT team. The architects took it back, made some adjustments. It was estimated, and we dropped $1 million of savings off the project. As we get into the interior, as we engage our staff starting tomorrow, we anticipate some of those same wins along the way as we get into the theater, as we get into the arena, as we get into the courtyards or other common spaces. We just have not spent any time on at all. So our teachers are anxious about wanting to do that and getting inside it, and that's going to be a good opportunity over the next few weeks because I think we have 2 full staff meetings and 15 or 20 small group teacher meetings over the next few weeks to really dive in. So really looking forward to that. I think those numbers will become more certain over time because we continue to value engineer. And the more we value engineer and the more details through design development that are developed, that it creates more budget certainty. So we feel like we're in a really good spot. And as we dive in, we feel like it's only going to get better. So we appreciate you guys being here this evening and kind of clarifying that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is, I know one of the board's favorite topics, as always, and we invite Ms. Carrie Snyder to the microphone. Carrie is our internship teacher. She has provided a few different updates for the board, as this is certainly an initiative that is drawn a lot of interest and opportunity for our students. And so tonight, Carrie's going to provide us an update, but she's also got 2 of our interns here that are going to tell us a little bit about their experiences, et cetera. So, okay.
Yes, I figured that you all had heard enough from me and it was time to hear from the students. So thanks again for letting us come back and talk for now the 3rd time about this program and just how it's evolved over the past year and a half and how we're hoping to grow it in the future. So before we start, go back one for me, Dawn. Shameless plug. There's our social media handles, Instagram and I guess what is it now, X instead of Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. They're the same ones. I'm doing lots of postings and we'll start those up next week as all of the kids will be launched, as I call it, after by the end of this week. Thanks, Don. All right, so the whole adage of how it started, how it's going. These were our partners last year, which was our first year, very successful. We had a great run. So we had lots of different areas of focus for our students. We had flight training, we had veterinary, we had OTPT, we had vet services. We were kind of all over the place, some architecture with Monkey Bar. So that's how it started. And now this is where we are this year. So you can see it's grown and grown and grown. On the right-hand side, we have some continuing partnerships. That doesn't mean that we have not worked with the other groups. We just didn't have placements this year, but these are the partners that we've worked with this year and are continuing on even this semester. Down in the bottom, the L is lead training, which is Riley O'Grady's company, and she's done some personalized internship programs, and Ava's going to actually speak about one of those in psychology. And then the rest of these, we've had one of my students is over at KME doing a student teaching internship, and she's going to be at Columbia this semester as well. And then SHP has joined the club, so that's kind of perfect. We've got some engineering and architecture students that are going to be, we have a meeting tomorrow. We're going to be downtown tomorrow with them. So just growing and growing in all different areas. Power 5, here we go. One of our big initiatives for the district. The KME team talked about this. What's interesting about the Power 5 skills here is that these are these skills that the students identified. The thing that they have to do is their final exam, because obviously I can't give them a test, is do an interview. And many of you in this room have participated in that. And so I thank you again humbly. We'll be asking again in April. They identified the skills and things that they learned. These are the things the kids identified. I did not prompt them. I just said, pick some from here. These are the ones the kids have learned. I think that we can all agree that these are vital skills for survival in the world today and just becoming a well-rounded individual. Not exactly all the same words, but certainly synonyms and close enough. Very proud of them for that. I love a good visual. On this, if you do the math, there are 137 confirmed internship areas that we have in the works right now, all the way from hospitality up to different business opportunities. We are also working with our current internship partners to expand what they are able to do with and for us. For example, UC, obviously a medical center. We've had a lot of opportunity there. Zach's going to actually talk about his experience there. But they have agreed to start working with us on tech, on some of their engineering things, some of their PR, the business side of healthcare. So using those partners to just even expand out more as we continue to grow. Okay, this is the who, what, when, where, why. Oh, it says what. That's not what it's supposed to say. It's supposed to say who, what, when. So obviously this is seniors currently. We had a meeting with the juniors on Friday to talk about all things workforce, and we got a lot of feedback from the kids. We had 100 students say that they were interested for sure. We had 133 students said that they were definitely interested but needed more information. So students with the GPAs, good attendance. These are the kids that we're targeting, and we would like to have this experience be valuable and something that we can fulfill for them. The 8 to 10 hours a week is the average. We have some students doing a little bit more, a little bit less. When they can do it fall, spring, or both. Where? Obviously, we're going to figure that out and place the kids as they fit. And then why? Power 5 skills obviously provides huge on-the-job training, lots and lots of experience, and then really it just kind of teaches them how to adult, how to be in the world of adult work, which can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. And so I'm going to have 2 of my students. Zach was a student who did an internship at Westchester Hospital in the fall. So he's going to talk about his experience. And then the next student, her name is Ava, and she's going to talk about what we're planning for her this semester. And then I'll come back at the end if you have any questions. So first up is Zach.
All right, good evening, everyone. So I had my internship over this past semester at UC Health in Westchester. And while I was there, I kind of alternated between both shadowing experience as well as some volunteering experiences where I kind of learned a lot about the clinical side of the hospital as well as some kind of social and interpersonal skills. And throughout my shadowing, I kind of rotated throughout the hospital through different departments, whether it be like radiology, ER nursing. I went through so many different departments, and it really helped kind of show exactly what they did. I had a general idea of what I wanted to do going into it, but honestly, being able to just kind of go through the experience and kind of see exactly what everything did while I was unsure. It really helped me narrow down my options, and it really kind of showed me what I wanted to do, as well as probably more importantly, what I didn't want to do. I was very interested in a lot of things, and it kind of helped me really narrow down exactly what I wanted to do. And it kind of just, for example, like I really was adamant about becoming a surgeon for a very long time. Going into the experience, I actually was pretty set on it just being kind of more of a stepping stone and kind of like a resume builder. But the more I was actually doing things, I was in the hospital, I was around people in the operating room, actual surgeons, the more I kind of realized that I liked the surgical aspect of things and I wanted to work in a surgical team, but that a surgeon didn't really fit with my long-term goals. And just kind of being able to interact with the people in that field was really a game changer for me. And it really helped kind of, I guess, prevent me from going into a field where I probably wouldn't have been as happy as where I may be going now. And another thing that I really liked about this experience was kind of the connections that I was able to make. Just the amount of different surgeons, doctors, nurses, everyone. It's a very great connection builder. And like with any field, it's very important to have connections in the health field. And just kind of getting my foot in the door with those things and being in contact with those people was very helpful. And then on the other side of things, the volunteering aspect also kind of shed a lot of light to me, like what the actual healthcare field is like, person to person wise. It really kind of put me into situations that I probably wouldn't have been comfortable with initially. And it kind of just showed me that like being able to talk to people is a very important part of your job. Overall, my experience there was really like invaluable for my future. Despite the time commitment and kind of like the relatively far commute, it was, I can say with 100% certainty that it really helped kind of shape my path for the future. And the connections experience that I was able to make have been incredible. And I'm very grateful to both Mrs. O'Grady and Ms. Snyder for the opportunity. And I believe that the internship experience itself, the program, one thing that I really enjoyed about it was that it's something you can't really replicate in the classroom. Being able to go and just get that experience is something you can't just sit down and teach. And being able to make those connections was a huge part for me, and I think for many people. And I think for anyone that chooses to go into the program, they will gain something from it, even if it's realizing that it's something they don't want to do. And once again, I want to thank Ms. Snyder. Throughout this whole process, she has been very, very flexible and understanding. With my schedule personally, I had a lot going on. There was a lot I wanted to do with my senior year, and she made sure to always have my back. And that's something I really found amazing about this program, was just how student focused it was. There's so much work that goes into like getting the students the help they need and making sure that they can get what they want, and just overall providing the best overall experience for them. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I have to say. Are there any questions? All righty,
So
thank you very much.
I-
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, we're all nice and we let everyone take turns, but, so what have you decided you do want to do?
So I initially, as I said, I want to be a surgeon, but the more that I talked to the CRNAs, which is a nurse anesthetist, the more I kind of realized with a work-life balance that they had, that's what I kind of came to the conclusion that I want to do, just based on my personal goals, like starting a family and things. I kind of, being able to talk to them, it made me realize that becoming a nurse anesthetist was what I wanted to do.
Right. Mrs. Snyder, did you have Zach talk to the juniors or
Not
any
yet.
other students? Cause I mean, they are, I
Not
mean,
there yet. Next week after next is when we're meeting. I got all the kids today. I'm honing the list, so that is in process. And I was actually, he doesn't know that yet. I'm not making eye contact. Both of these two lovely young people. I was going to have to have them come and chat once we really get that list narrowed down to who is for sure interested. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right. Thank you for telling us.
Of course.
Thank you for sharing.
For sure.
Gonna make me cry. Okay, so then next up is Ava, and Ava is starting, well, what we started last week? Last week we started, but I'll kind of let her talk about her experience, which is very different than the one that Zach had, just because of the kind of personalized design that we had. So, cool? Yep. All right, take it away.
Thank you. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Ava Gondro. My area of kind of interest was psychology, neuroscience, mental health. I knew, like, since freshman year, it's kind of what I wanted to do, but that's such a broad spectrum. I didn't really know, like, medical, school psychology, business psychology. There's so many aspects of it that I wasn't really sure about. And when we had that meeting, my junior year, I was like, that sounds really awesome to be able to, like, work and like see a day-to-day schedule of somebody in the psychology world, the mental health world. And it really appealed to me that Messiah was very transparent that a lot of these interns go into this and decide this isn't what I want to do. Like that was to me like, oh my gosh, I can go into college being sure that I don't want to do this and I'm not wasting a bunch of money. So I signed up, and psychology is hard because you can't just go sit with a psychologist all day and listen to everybody's problems because HIPAA. So I am, we kind of got, this was kind of like a make it your own. So it was really cool. So at the beginning of the year, we sat down with Mr. Curtis Keller and Riley and Miss Snyder. And I kind of set out like what I really wanted to hone on, what I really wanted to try out. And so ultimately I was like, I want to get a taste of everything. I want to see the business side of psychology. I want to see the school side. I want to see the medical psychiatry side. Like, I want to see everything that I don't even know exists. So right now I'm working with Mr. Curtis Keller in the career services. I'm with him most days. And he kind of walks me through like what it's like to work with our Career Quest seniors who really don't know what they want to do. There's actually a ton of psychology involved with that I didn't even think of. Like he is like counseling these kids. A lot of them maybe have no idea what they want to do and they're really unmotivated. He teaches me kind of how he like breaks through to them, how we can be effective to groups that maybe we overlook sometimes. And that has been really, really cool. Honestly, I've only been in it for like a week or so, but I've already learned like, wow, I didn't know you were using psychological tactics to get through to these like kids about finding a job. So it's been so awesome. And I really liked that I could pick second semester because basketball first semester, clubs, like I was like, I just want to get settled in the school, complete my Common App, and then I'll do my internship. So I'm going to work with Mr. Keller most days. And then we're trying to, I want to kind of work with the kids at the elementary schools. So Mrs. Emily Sander is at JF Burns, and we're going to meet with her. She's the school counselor there. I'm going to try and work with her a few days a week to work in some of her small groups that she runs. She's going to teach me about the social emotional learning and with especially like the younger kids. She's going to walk me through her day-to-day, which is going to be really exciting because I think I want to work more with younger kids. So that's going to be like awesome. And then I also have some like one-off opportunities where like next week or in 2 weeks, I'm going to meet with a director at the Linder Center of Hope, which is like so amazing because it's really hard to get into care facilities for psychology because obviously it's a very sensitive place. So I'm going to get to tour that place. I'm going to get to talk with the director and kind of talk about his journey with psychology and mental health. And because I have a lot of anxiety about, am I picking the right major? Am I going to grad school? Am I getting a PhD? Am I getting a PsyD? Like there's so many questions. And so talking to all these professionals and their journey, I think it's really going to be beneficial in picking what I do after college, the classes that I pick, the majors, the minors. And so I get to meet with him. I'm going to go do some of the after school programs that LEAD does at different schools like Norwood and Mount Healthy. And then I'm also going to go to like GE and work with their IO psychologist, which is industrial organization. And they're going to show me like that business side. And then as a capstone, I kind of want to do a little project at the end, like on top of my interview. I want to try and like, I'm involved with Sources of Strength at the high school. I want to try and create like a little program where we as the high schoolers can somehow work with the little kids at the elementary schools and maybe run some of our own like social emotional learning groups. Like if anybody is like interested in furthering their education on mental health, and also even like maybe like a little grief group. I was a part of a grief group with Fernside at the high school. It was so beneficial. And I think like bringing that to little kids and like being able to work with the big kids at the high school and they can like see that what we're doing, it really like, I think it bridges that gap and it like hones in on that sense of community. So I'm really excited to continue my internship, and I'm pretty sure I know what I want to do, but it will help me decide further what classification of psychology I really want to go into. So yeah, any questions?
It's just great how open you are too.
Yep.
You know, see all of those different things. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ames.
So two very different experiences. Westchester is very specific, very set. We've kind of honed the program last year and this year. And then obviously it's kind of a choose your own adventure with Ava and some of the other things, because to her point, HIPAA prevents a lot of that, just jumping in and shadowing. So we're able to kind of craft and do some of that personalized learning. That is one of our big focuses for Kings. So a couple slides and then I'm done. This is our timeline. Like I said, Friday, we had the meeting with the juniors. Hey, here are the things you can do next year. The 29th, we're doing an internship, and Riley and I decided to call because we're also pulling in some of the trades that we want to focus on as well, that maybe don't work at the Career Center or scheduling or things like that. We're using pre-apprenticeship very broadly because, of course, that has very technical terms to it. So that's just a term we're using here at Kings to speak to kids who want to expand and maybe look into those opportunities as well. We're going to have a meeting with the parents to let them know, and then February, we're going to start scheduling, and then we're off to the races, March through May, doing interviews, meeting with employers, matching kids to get ready for next August. That's our plan. And then I think any questions that you all have for us or me?
Not a question, but more of a comment. Looks like it's really taken off.
It has.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like it.
It definitely has. We've, last year I had 15 students. This year I have 40. So hopefully it'll just continue to multiply. That's certainly the goal, to build it. And I know Greg and I've talked about, we'd like to have every kid at the high school have some kind of experience before they graduate. So here's hoping. But I did want to say before I sit down that I really appreciate how supportive you all have been, how just positive and proactive and really just supportive you've been for the whole program. I'm having a great time. I mean, I'm having a great time. And so thank you. I appreciate the time, and again, letting me come and talk and letting the kids chat as well. Okay. All right. Thank you. Be well. Stay warm.
Thank you. As we close this, I think what is so important is, we've heard a few different presentations around what we call our Power Five. You could see various things in action, but then this demonstrates that opportunity for career readiness and analyzing what they want to do, exposing students to opportunities beyond the four walls of classrooms, and the learning that takes place is just, you hear it. And we've all been a part of different interviews with some of the intern students. Just the learning that's taking place on what they want to do, but more importantly, what they don't want to do. A lot of students will make that decision early on and then regret or make a change. And then we're trying to give kids the most information, rethinking how that high school experience looks, exposing them to different opportunities so that they can be highly competitive against their peers, and no matter what pathway they choose. And so for these guys, having that exposure, not only can they put it on a resume, but they've also developing skills that are going to separate them from other students that haven't been in those experiences. So we appreciate both of you for coming tonight, sharing this, but also just taking a risk and thinking about something different, because it's, you're both very future focused. And so it's our obligation to try to knock down barriers so that you can experience learning in new ways. So again, to be highly competitive and successful. So thank you for coming tonight, and for all of the legwork that Mrs. Snyder is going to sign you up to do to recruit other students into these types of programs. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I just think of like the amount of money their parents are going to save. And I see some parents back there that are probably pretty happy that, you get a little bit more focus early on.
And I like how Carrie has followed through so much to make sure it's to each individual student's desire. It's not like a quote unquote class. It really is based on what your students want to do. So thank you for seeing that through. Thank you again.
If you guys have, you can, this is a good time. If you, you do not, you can sneak out. It's completely fine. It's not rude. We thank you
for taking time out. Thank you. And as we transition to our last presentation, not really a presentation, but it's an opportunity for us to recognize our Board of Education on School Board Recognition Month. So we want to first, let's give a round of applause to our board members this evening. This year's theme, you could, Dana, you don't even need to get up just yet. So this is going to be a minute. Yes, you're good. This year's theme across the state is School Board Superheroes, and we think our board is definitely superheroes. We're very fortunate to have a student-centered board that cared deeply about all of the nights from pre-K all the way through 12. Recently, Mrs. Gould asked each one of our board members some various questions about themselves, and she's prepared some statements that I will read, recognizing each one of our board members. First up, our newly elected board president, John Skirl, has been on the board for 3 years. He said he became a board member to have a positive impact on our community and our schools. His hope is to help support each child living in the Kings Local School District so they can have the best educational experience while preparing them for life beyond the walls of our buildings. He thinks the most challenging part of serving on the board is gathering information and input from everyone in the district. His favorite part is seeing the passion that our educators have for their jobs and the impact they have on our students. He said that hearing students speak about the impact that teachers have had on their lives shows the love that our teachers have for teaching their students and the Kings community. He said that even though serving on the board has come with its challenges, he has enjoyed it and finds a very rewarding experience, especially being able to witness firsthand the achievements, dreams, and talents of our students from preschool through grade 12. Thank you, John Skirl. We have a certificate of appreciation. Next up is our recently elected Vice President, Janelle Groff. She's also been on the board for 3 years. Janelle wanted to be a board member to ensure all students in the district have the opportunity to have an excellent preschool through 12th grade education. However, she finds the challenging part is in dealing with the way the state of Ohio funds our public schools. Her favorite event to attend at Kings include graduation, Kings celebrations, and any time she gets to see students excelling in their passions. She's excited for the future of Kings and thinks that everyone is going to want to move to Kings so their student can be a knight. She said she's humbled to be able to serve our community and doesn't take the honor lightly. She thanks the community for trusting in her. We appreciate you, Mrs. Janelle Groff. Thank you. Next up, Ms. Deb Cowan, serving her 8th year on the Kings Board of Education. She said she wanted to be on the board to serve our community and its children. She said the most difficult part of serving on the board is that doing the right thing is not necessarily the easiest, but it's so important. But she said at its core, Kings is all about the wonderful community members, which includes the children, that makes Kings such an amazing place. She said that it is an honor and a privilege to serve on the board, and she's forever grateful for the trust and opportunity the community has given her. She loves the quote that says, "The future is bright in Kings." Thank you, Mr. Cowan. And next up is Ms. Peggy Phillips, just starting her 10th year on the Kings Board of Education. As a board member, she served both vice president and president. She became a school board member because of her passion for education and seeing students succeed. She said the most challenging aspect is making the hard decisions. As board members, all decisions are based on what is best for students by reviewing policies, gathering diverse inputs from staff, students, parents, and community members, and ensuring the responsible use of taxpayers' money. She said that she's committed to working with staff, parents, and the entire community to create an environment where students thrive as critical thinkers, collaborators, communicators, problem solvers, and ready to excel in their future. Her favorite thing about Kings is the people and relationships built
She thinks Kings is very special in the way that the community is supportive and willing to share their thoughts and ideas to help Kings grow and thrive. She said it's an honor and privilege to serve as a Kings board member. She is happy to connect with any Kings community member to discuss anything. Thank you for your service, Mrs. Phillips. And last but not least, Mr. Stacy Belfram has served the Kings community on the board for 7 years. He's a past president and has also served as vice president. He wanted to be on the board to effect change within the district and continue to see it move forward with all students in mind. He believes that the most difficult part of being a board member is the weight of the responsibility of creating policy and making decisions for thousands of students, staff, and families. His favorite thing about being on the board is having the unique opportunity to interact with the community in so many positive ways. He's excited about the future of Kings, said that our culture blueprint and building plans have the district poised to lead well into the future. He thinks that it has been a distinct honor to serve this community, and he's looking forward to what is to come. Thank you, Mr. Beltram.
Thank you, Damon.
I know that this was, I want to thank Mrs. Gould for that work and putting that together. And even though I get to deliver those words, I know that I speak for everyone in the room and all throughout the community. We are so appreciative of your dedication, your commitment and service to this community. Although that it is 1 month and it's 1 day that we recognize you, please know you're appreciated all year round. And so we thank you for your service, commitment, and always having the best interest of our students in mind. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you.
So moving along to the next item in our agenda, we have public participation. Seeing we have none for this evening, we'll go ahead and move on to approval items for our treasurer, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. I don't have anything additional above and beyond what was said at the work session, but if the board has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
May I make a motion to approve items D for the treasurer?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Mr. Morrow?
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan, Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Next on our agenda, we have items approval for the superintendent, Mr. Sears.
Yeah, so last week the board approved quite a few external trips. This week we have one additional one. It is for our baseball program and a spring break trip.
Just so we're clear, they don't need a Board of Education chaperone. I hear Vero Beach is lovely in March.
You've been on the board 8 years, Mr. Belfram.
And it hasn't happened yet.
You're 0 for 8 years on that request, I believe.
Gonna get it,
You're gonna get it
One of
one
these
time.
times.
One of these times.
preferably somewhere south.
May I have a motion to approve items for Mr. Sears?
I'll second that.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Cowan, Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull.
Yes. Next on our agenda, we have approval items for Assistant Superintendent HR Business. Mr. Spinner?
Good evening, President Skrull, Kings Board of Education. I only have one item above and beyond what we discussed last week, and that is our Summer Camp 2025 Parent Handbook. This handbook's on the agenda this evening to clarify language and expectations for our summer camp. In addition, we will continue to monitor registration in an effort to level set staffing. And it should be noted that we are raising tuition by 5%. This continues to be competitive among area-wide summer camp programs.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Spinner?
I noticed in the handbook, it talked about children from outside the district. How often does that happen that we don't fill up with just the Kings community?
It's a very good question. Of the 130 or so students we had last year, not exactly sure how many were outside of the district. I don't think it's very many
Small.
compared to what we have.
Okay. Just didn't know if that happens very often.
I don't know that we have many take advantage of it. There are a lot of options throughout the area that I think
I know
students
it-
outside the district take advantage of.
Okay. I just know it's so popular. I didn't know there would probably ever
Absolutely.
be an opportunity. I didn't know. Okay.
May I make a motion to approve these items for Mr. Spinner, attendant superintendent, HR and business?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan, Mr. Skrull.
Yes. The next item are approval items for assistant superintendent educational programs.
We don't have anything else to add unless there's questions from last week.
Seeing no questions, may I have a motion to approve this item on the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan, Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull.
Yes. Next on our agenda, we have items presented by the board. Do we have anything for the board to present this evening?
I don't have anything.
No? Moving along, we have next is our legislative liaison update. Mr. Belfrom?
Yeah, I don't have anything for this evening. I probably actually need to get with you, President's Girl, and
Okay.
kind of go through the formatting, make sure I'm keeping that consistent. So I will have updates for next month for
Okay,
certain.
absolutely. Next on our agenda, we have student achievement liaison update.
Yes.
Mrs. Groff?
Since I just took this over last week, I'm going to start next month.
Okay. Not to take away anything from the achievements that our students have, but I look forward to seeing what you have to present next month.
There's a lot out there, as we can see from our students today.
So one last item we have is executive session. We are about to enter into executive session for the following purpose: to consider the discipline and compensation of a public employee or official. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan, Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull.
Yes.
Do we plan on taking any action?
No. So please note that once we exit executive session, will we be coming back to adjourn this evening's meeting? Thank you for coming out.